Yeah. Smallfoot is basically Bigfoot in reverse. There's the myth of the Bigfoot, which are the abominable snowman or Sasquatch or whatever you want to call it. And this movie sort of takes the premise of Yetis who live in the Himalayas who believe that humans, that they call Smallfoot, don't exist, that they're a myth, a mythical creature. And then we have fun sort of taking the Bigfoot myth and sort of reversing it. Well, this came from an idea by Sergio Pablos, who created the Despicable Me movie and franchise. And I think what it allows us to do is to tell a very allegorical, satiric tale that's really about the fear of the other. And our Yetis live in this primitive world. It's a mountain high above the clouds. According to their beliefs, their world is an island, and it's the only thing in the world. And they live on clouds, and below the clouds is nothing. And just that concept alone allows us to tell or poke fun, gentle fun at basically ethnocentricity. Most of us, whatever country we come from, whatever tribe, whatever land, we tend to view the world from our point of view, and everything else is the other. And this allows us to do it in a very comedic way, and kind of making them sort of medieval in some ways. The old medieval maps that showed ships going off the end of the earth, and how the world was perceived before getting a little bit of enlightenment. And this allows us to tell a story like that through the points of views of Yetis. And because they're somewhat primitive, it allows us to be comedic in their perspective and their perception of us, basically. So. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's difficult because of the volume of work. So having the responsibility of writing it, of co-writing the songs, and also directing it, on the one hand, is a lot of work. So it's 3 times the amount of work, say, if I was just directing it. But on the other hand, it allows me to kind of be at the epicenter of all of the changes. So that oftentimes what's difficult in making a movie is getting all of the disparate voices to be telling the same story, be integral in those 3 jobs. It eliminates that part of it, because I know what story it is that I'm trying to tell. I know the tone that I'm trying to set. In that respect, it makes things a little bit easier because there's less miscommunication. But it's a lot of work. That was a lot of work. Yes. What I love about animated movies is that they really are our modern day morality tales. So, hundreds of years ago we had Aesop's fables, we had Grimm's fairy tales. Stories like Jack and the Beanstalk, they're allegories for, larger life issues.
Moral issues, etc.
Yeah. I think animation allows you to push boundaries comedically, visually, that allow you to tell satiric, social, allegorical stories, that are both entertaining, but there's a strong message underneath. And I think the messages are valuable for the younger viewers, because I think kids, whether they realize it or not, go to these movies to kind of learn how to live their lives in a weird way, and there are values that they can emulate, that by watching these other characters struggle with things. So like, for instance, in Smallfoot, lying and lies is a big theme in the movie. That Yetis are basically living on a lie, that they're told humans don't exist. And they're told that out of fear of the other, that it's easier to just pretend they don't exist than to actually try to coexist with them. And then the question is, when faced with telling a lie or telling the truth, what do you end up doing? And our character makes the wrong choice, but then ends up making the right choice. So I think that's a valuable lesson, not only for kids, but for adults as well. And then because it's animated, because there's Yetis, because it's musical, it allows us to push the comedy, only enhances the kind of social satire and the allegorical nature. And that really appeals to me. And that all of the movies that I work on, I find that has to be a quality in it in order for me to be interested. If it's not somewhat, if there's not an element of satire or some kind of subversion of something, I don't find it as interesting. So. Well, I think it was a decision that was made by Warner Brothers and WAG. They were here last year. I think they've been here several years, but I think there's no better place to present, especially for us, for Warner Brothers Animation, for WAG, that is so rooted in a history, a long history of Looney Tunes. So I was raised on Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and I watched those endlessly as a kid. So all of that is, it's a part of me. It's early shaping of my comedic outlook, my sense of animation, the squash and stretch style, the physical animation, which just became normal to me. To now be a part of that tradition, and to come here to Annecy, which is so, ripe with so many, and just the level of love for animation is really, to see people lining up, to either watch animated shorts or just to see the presentation of what studios have coming out, and that love of animation, to actually get to see those fans' faces, the faces behind the computer screens and the ones that were normally, is really rewarding for those of us, because we, I think animation fans either sit in bed with a laptop or wherever they go to watch it. Well, we're doing the same thing when we make these movies. For me, Smallfoot was made, and basically I'm in 3 different rooms most of the day, looking at screens, dealing with people. So to get out and be amongst people, and people who enjoy animation as much as they do, is really rewarding. We can't. I know our movies sort of have a mass appeal, but it's always that core fan base, the people who really love animation. You know what it is too is. The people who love it like this, I think, are the ones that keep us on our toes, from the artistry side. Because you want to come to a place like Annecy and you want to show your movie and you want people to go, oh, that looks really good. Because it's a tough crowd when they're savvy with all kinds of animation. Whatever reference you're making, they're going to get. So you better be on your game. Amazing, actually. Yeah. That first movie was a really, really special process for me. I was pretty young in my career. It was a gift to be given such a great idea to work on, and 2 such talented guys to work with, Nick Park and Peter Lord. I was on that movie for 3.5 years. It was one of the single most rewarding creative experiences of my 30-year career. And then to go in and revisit those characters all these years later, I was a little nervous about what was it going to be like? But just as soon as you sit down and write their names and start typing, the way they talk is so kind of ingrained in who I am. And I'm writing it with John O'Farrell, who I met on the first Chicken Run, who came in and did some dialogue, reworking, and so he and I working on it together. I've been writing it for a couple of years, and they're finally starting to the actual process of making it, and it's great. It's a good story. Really, I think it's going to be fun for people. I certainly hope a sequel that gets released 20 years after the first one comes out. What's nice about it, though, is that the original has only kind of become more beloved as each year goes by. And then there's a whole new generation of fans who grew up with the movie who are now going to be in their 20s. So to see it again. So it's great.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.